I want you guys to put a premium on teams with good offensive lines, right? Like the whole deal is, how do we find these good ecosystems where we can take 1, 2, 3, 4 players from them? It's good ecosystems to have good offensive lines, like, good play callers as well, good quarterbacks. Yes. So I'm just going to break into 2 groups here for people to think about. Daigle, I'm going to get your opinion on both groups. Number one, I think the obvious teams that this should, like, again, these should be obvious. Not everybody knows about offensive lines, but 4 teams that I think are obvious to put a premium on because their offensive lines are really good: Eagles, Bucks, Broncos, Bills. I think in fantasy, we're interested in a lot of players from those offenses, but are there any players and units that maybe we should like more than where they're kind of going ADP wise, kind of based on this analysis here?
I believe it's the Eagles, and it's not in the direction that everyone's thinking, because we relate the offensive line to the running back, and that makes sense. But Jalen Hurts, as we talked about, you draft in the back of the first round, for example, it comes back in the 3rd, 4th round turn to you, and then that's a group of players like Terry McLaurin, Devontae Adams, Jackson Smith, and Jigba that I like. But again, Jalen Hurts is also right there, someone who has shown us he can finish as the overall QB1, and we should believe in a regression for the Eagles' passing offense. Last year, for example, Hurts had averaged 7 fewer pass attempts per game than he did in 2023. And I don't think that's just because they added Saquon Barkley. I think it's the schedule and how little they had to throw in the second half of the year, where these things year over year just naturally regress. And that's what we try to pay attention to and suggest to everyone listening that we should be ahead of. Even go back to their injuries and recall that A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, and Dallas Goedert only played 79 plays together with Hurts. They just weren't available. So what happens if the Eagles have to pass more? What happens if they're at full strength in the passing game? I think it all allows Hurts, including that offensive line, to just be better overall through the air. So yes, the Eagles are one I'm definitely highlighting.
Yeah, I love taking their wide receivers where they're going right now. Jalen Hurts is a good fallback plan if you still want to go high-end quarterback as well. I'll throw out the Broncos here on this one too, and I'm curious where to take this one, right? Like the Broncos' offensive line is really good. They were great in pass protection. They were quietly good in as a run-blocking unit last year, but you mentioned Devontae Williams earlier. They didn't have anybody to take advantage of that. I think people want to draft R.J. Harvey for sure. I totally get that one. But in the pass-catching group here, Daigle, have you had like a lean towards any of these guys? Because I still haven't like quite figured out. Like, I don't know if you mentioned Evan Ingram when we were talking about tight ends, like where he fits in that sort of in that tier of guys there. But I haven't been like super bullish one way or another on any of the pass catchers, except taking Pat Bryant super, super late in drafts. Just because I think he fits in well in this wide receiver room, and they're looking for a true 2 across from Cortland Sutton. But like, this is an offense that I want to be in on this year, but I haven't quite found my path to getting exposure to it just yet.
It's a very complicated offense to discuss because I think everyone's going to play. That's the issue with Sean Payton,
right?
Is that he really does roll out everyone. And so I like Pat Bryant, like you. I like Devon Vele, who I did not like as a prospect and then proved me wrong last season whenever he was available in the second half of the year. Marvin Mims has shown us if they give him an opportunity, although I still believe he's pigeonholed under Sean Payton as a gadget player. But if he gets an opportunity, he has a very high ceiling. I just think they have so many players that excel at one thing. They are naturally going to play all of them, and that puts a dent on their volume outside of Cortland Sutton. Bo Nix is also an interesting conversation. You know, when I mentioned drafting Drake May, he's also going to go after Bo Nix, and I think that's incorrect. Nix at least showed us that he has a promise. He's a promising player in the NFL, where even I had question marks about that coming out of Oregon. But also, remember, price matters in this dumb little game of fantasy football we're playing. And Bo Nix last year was going basically undrafted, even in Superflex leagues. And we knew that was incorrect at the time, just to take a shot on a quarterback with athleticism and draft capital. Whereas this year now, he's being treated as a top 12 guy. And I think that's a mistake since the cost has gotten significantly better. He broke out last year, did a lot of things different, started passing a lot more behind the line of scrimmage in order to get plays upfield rather than forcing things to happen downfield. But also, that happened last year against one of the easiest schedules in the entire league, and the running he showed at the first half of the year became significantly inconsistent at the cost of then peppering behind the line of scrimmage. So I'm a little bit worried about Bo Nix just for fantasy. Again, showed he's a very good player that we were wrong on. But yes, I think the Broncos are just naturally going to play everyone, and that's scary.
No, it's totally fair about Nix. He was a guy that I really wanted to be excited about this year, but like he just goes a little too early in that massive tier where I haven't gotten a lot of Bo Nix. But certainly it really good fit in Sean Payton's offense and somebody that I think can be an exciting player for them for the long term. I'll throw out 5 offensive lines that I think have improved based on offseason moves, and just I want to know which one of these stand out and maybe maybe a team I might have missed here. Vikings really remade the interior offensive line, drafting Donovan Jackson, adding Ryan Kelly and Will Fries from the Indianapolis Colts. They're going to want to run the ball a lot better. The Bears, we know that was like the first thing Ben Johnson and co did was remake that offensive line. The Titans could really go from awful to maybe functional or maybe even average with the moves that they made in the offseason. The Chiefs, Josh Simmons, their first-round pick. If he's healthy, he's going to be a steal at 31st overall. He's got nothing but rave reviews out of training camp. And the Jets as well. Olu Fashanu, former first-round pick in his second year, adding Armand Membu, like that could quietly be a really, really good offensive line with some young players developing, especially if they can stay healthy with a guy like Elijah Vera Tucker this year as well. So any of those 5, one of those 5 teams stand out to you, and did I miss anyone here?
Didn't miss anyone, and honestly, all of them stand out, but I think the player that's going to capitalize the most is Justin Fields, just because Aaron Glenn and Tanner Engstrand are not lying to themselves. They saw Justin Fields average 110 rushing yards against them with the Bears. They know his strengths. And unlike the Raiders, who I think also with Chip Kelly and Pete Carroll want to come into the year running the ball heavily, the Jets have elite pieces on defense. The Raiders do not. And that's why I think we're going to get some really fun shootouts with Geno Smith indoors and Ashton Genty and Brock Bowers throughout the year. But the Jets can play their style of ball in playing keep away and just using Justin Fields, who again, and this wide open flat tier of QB2 range, Justin Fields now, the last 2 years, has been a top 12 quarterback in 59% of his starts. He's averaged 8.5 rushing points per game since 2022. This is what he does. Even with the Steelers, when he was benched, he was the QB8 in points per game. This is what he does well, is be startable in fantasy regardless of what happens through the air. What happens through the air is the cherry on top. That's how he would eventually become a top 4, top 5 guy. Even if it's not successful outside of Garrett Wilson, who is going to be a 150-plus target guy, Justin Fields alone provides value. And so I think that's the one that's helped out the most.
Yeah, Garrett Wilson, better than any receiver, in my opinion, that Fields has worked with so far. So I'm excited to see their connection. But yeah, it's funny. Like, I think Justin Fields, you mentioned like this is who he is, and it happens no matter what. I think he almost like doesn't really want to run that much anymore. And part of this is just like, I've watched him play, but also, again, I'll harken back to a conversation I had with him when Austin Eckler and I were still doing a show together. This was at the Super Bowl 2 years ago, maybe 3. Oh my God, was that like 3 years ago now at this point? It was the Phoenix Super Bowl, the Niners and Chiefs, I believe. No, the first Eagles Chiefs Super Bowl. We had him on the show, and Austin was like, "Yeah, there's only 1,000-yard rusher on this stadium, and it's not me." And spoiler alert, it also was not me. And Justin kind of like, I was like, "Yeah," like kind of rolled his eyes at it. And at the end of the conversation, Austin said, "I hope you can run for 1,000 yards again." And Fields goes, "I hope I don't." Like, he was worn out after that season where he ran the ball so much. And I think these guys want to develop as quarterbacks, but we'll see. I'm not throwing cold water on Fields because I am in on where he's going, ahead of where he's going, really. But it is like sneaking suspicion to me that maybe Fields wants to dial the rushing back a little bit. But even still, Daigle, I think he wanted to do it last year. And as you mentioned, he still backed his way into some usable quarterback weeks.
And I believe he should be taken confidently as a player you don't even need to stack. You can take Garrett Wilson for sure, but beyond that, there are major question marks, so much so that rookie tight end Mason Taylor is being highlighted as the team's second best receiver right now. So let's just take Justin Fields and be happy with that.